Hey guys, Johnny B&E here, and today I wanted to go over the glider tow release setup for the Carbon Z Cub. I'll be going over the installation of the servo as well as the tow release mechanism, but I'm also going to go over the programming on your transmitter to make sure it's set up to work correctly. As with any project that you're going to be doing on your plane where you're going to be working here on the bench with the radio live, do yourself a favor, take 2 seconds to remove the propeller from the front of the plane. That way, just in case you accidentally advance the throttle while it's on the bench, you don't have to worry about the propeller starting to spin. You could actually hurt yourself that way. Anyways, peace of mind, 2 seconds, just remove it. Anyways, let's get started. Okay, let's go over the hardware and tools we're going to need for the project. We're going to start here at the left with what should have already come in your kit with the Carbon Z Cub. Should have had a little bag like this that had 2 screws and a small push rod with a Z-bend in the end of it. Now what you're going to have to buy is a servo. Part number for this servo, it's an E-Flight EFLR7155 servo. You're going to need a servo arm of this size, and tools will come down to 2 Allen head screwdrivers. Okay, let's get started with the radio programming. I'm using a Spectrum DX7S. And once you have the tow release installed in the plane, it's operated by your gear channel. So we just want to go in and make sure that we have the settings correct for that channel. There's really only 2 things you're going to need to check. Let's go ahead and power on the transmitter and make sure you're set to your Cub, your model selection. We'll use the scroll wheel, click once, and that's going to pull up the function list. Scroll down 1 time here to servo setup, click into that menu. And we're going to select here the gear channel. Let's go ahead and click on that. We want to make sure that the travel is set to 100%. If you need to change that, you can click in it. Use your scroll wheel left or right to get it to 100%. But just confirm that they're both at 100%. We're going to come up here. We're going to go to reverse and make sure that the gear channel is set to normal. Those are the only 2 settings you need to confirm are right as far as the tow release is concerned. If you have those 2 set up like that, you are good to go. The next thing we're going to do is remove the rear cover on the top of the fuselage. This gives you access to the receiver area. Just use this piece of tape. You can pull this cover off. It gives you access to the receiver, the elevator, and rudder servos. But if any of you have ever done these videos, it's kind of tricky to try to get a good angle to where you can actually see and understand what's going on. So I'm going to have to move the camera to give you some better view of what's going on. So I'm going to put the camera back here. It's going to be looking forward. Okay, you'll be looking over this receiver. This is the tow hook release. And the servo gets mounted underneath that down here. Okay, it gets mounted in sort of like this, but below. But I'm going to change the camera angle so you can see a little more detail. But the servo will be mounted back in there. Let me move the camera so you can get a better angle and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, so I've repositioned the camera to give you more of a bird's eye view inside that compartment, the receiver compartment. So you're looking from the back towards the front of the plane. The nose of the plane would be up here. This is your receiver with all your leads for the servos coming out the back here. This is your tow hook release. And underneath the tow hook release, you'll see the tray where the servo is mounted. On the right side, there's a cutout. That cutout is for the servo lead here to have some room. So when you put the servo in, the head of the servo should be towards the right. I'm going to go ahead and remove the servo arm off of there, as you should as well, for installation. But that's how it's going to go in, just like that. It's important to note though, if you'll see on the servo tray here, on the left hand side, you'll see where the hole is. That's going to go through the actual hole for the servo here. On the right side, you're not actually going to screw through the hole in the servo. The head of the screw is going to screw in here on that right side. Okay, And the head of the screw is wide enough to come over this lip right here in the very corner of the servo. And that will be enough to hold it in place. So go ahead and feed your servo in with the wire lead coming off the right, as you see here. Take your screw on the left hand side, go ahead and put it through the center of the servo screw hole on the servo and tighten it down. Okay, and for the right hand side, you'll see the heads of these screws are actually pretty wide. So that's going to cover just over the side of the servo. So take this down here, go to that offset hole which is a little low, and thread it in. There you go. Okay, so now hopefully you get a better view, better understanding of what I meant. This one went right through the servo. On the right hand side, you're just a little off and below it. Now that we've got the servo mounted, go ahead and plug in the servo lead into the gear position on the receiver. It'll be the third from the right. It's clearly marked. Go ahead and plug that into the gear slot right down here. Plug it in. Turn on your transmitter, power up your receiver, and go ahead and cycle through your gear switch. Servo should be working. Now in the gear up position, or position 1 on the transmitter, the servo should have cycled in a counterclockwise direction. Let me put the servo arm on there so you can see what I mean. Okay, so that would be position 1, or gear up. Gear down, the servo arm will be up towards the top. So note that position here. This is the position you're going to want the servo arm to be in. What you're going to do, pull this off, and this is where this little push rod comes into play that came in the kit. This is the toe release. What you're going to do is take the servo arm, you're going to feed the Z-bend in from the back in the closest hole towards the center. As you can see here, hopefully. It's the closest hole towards the middle. Here's the tricky part. You're going to need to feed this up through the hole here. It's going to go up through this hole towards the tow hook release area right there. And then you got to remount the servo arm onto the servo. And this is really tricky with the camera here, but I'm going to do my best to get that on there. Okay, that looks about right. So now when you cycle through, you'll see how that release goes up and down the push rod. So go ahead, take the screw for the servo and lock the control arm down. Here's a close-up look at the tow hook release area. What you're looking for, I have the gear in position 1 now, which would be gear up. And when I cycle it to the gear down, you'll see that push rod gets pushed up through that little window in the tow release area. So what you're looking for when you're adjusting this, make sure in the gear up position that it is completely clear of the window, and in gear down it comes up fully through that area, through the window, so that it will secure your tow hook line in place. Now that the installation is complete, let me demonstrate for you how this should work. What I've got to represent our tow line is just a piece of fishing line. At the end I've tied a fishing swivel that has a closed loop end on it here. So what you want to do with the push rod in the down position, go ahead and slide that closed end through the window in the back of your release area here. Try to get it as centered up in here as you possibly can, and go ahead and operate your gear switch. Now odds are it's not going to engage it the first time. That's fine. There we go. What you're looking for is that the push rod comes cleanly through the center of that loop and it's not binding up at all. As you can see, once it's connected, it's a strong connection. Now hold a little pressure on it here, operate your gear switch again, and it should release clean without binding up. If for any reason it is binding up, you need to double check the adjustment of your push rod and make sure it's coming down enough to completely clear this window. And the project is complete. I want to take a second to say thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate all your support out there, and I hope the video was helpful to you. If you know somebody in the hobby, maybe someone at your flying field or in your flying club that's doing the same project, send them a link to my video. Hopefully I can be helpful to them too. You can check out all my videos by subscribing to my channel, Johnny VNE, or by typing Johnny VNE in the search bar. Thanks for watching.